Welcome to the podcast, folks. This was just so much fun to sit down with this guy and shoot the shit. Like, it was super cool. If you listen to podcasts, you know Spittin Chiclets, and I got to sit down with Paul Bissonnette, or you might know him as BizNasty. And here's your factory sports tale of the tape. He was originally drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2003. He played over 200 games in the NHL, both for the Penguins and then the Arizona Coyotes. He boasts more than 1.1 million followers on Twitter. He currently does the color for the Arizona Coyotes. And, of course, he's the co-host of the Spittin Chiclets podcast, which is the reason why we have Pink Whitney, a New Amsterdam product. So, needless to say, I'm currently in Arizona, currently in Phoenix. Somehow managed to run into this guy. Somehow managed to talk him into letting me sit down with him for an hour. And I just had a blast. So strap in and enjoy the next hour. Without further ado.
Let's roll, baby.
Okay, well, cool. Well, thanks. First off, joining me tonight is Paul BizNasty Bissonnette, originally drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2003. He played over 200 games in the NHL between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Arizona Coyotes. But, I mean, you've made a name for yourself on Twitter specifically. You got over 1 million followers. You're currently doing the color commentating for the Arizona Coyotes. And I think you're an absolute legend with the podcast world, specifically the hockey world with Spittin Chiclets. I mean, you're an absolute legend with all of my friends back home. So,
Fucking tummy sticks really early on here. Holy shit. You're going to be stroking me off all episode or what?
hey, it's an absolute honor to sit across from you. So, yeah, you call it whatever you want. You and Wick can absolutely bust my balls, but it's awesome.
Should we talk about how we met? How I showed up to the ASU game and this fucking guy behind me is literally spitting chiclets. He had his tooth out and you were looking at me with like I had 3 heads and I'm like, oh, am I blocking this guy's view or something? You're like, and then of course you introduce yourself and you said you have a pretty nice little following. You said you get about 3,000 to 5,000 downloads an episode.
Yeah, yes, and it's growing. It's been pretty cool. Um, when you came and sat down in front of me, I looked to my left and my right. I got my brother-in-law in town with us. He had no idea who you were. I got another gentleman sitting beside me on the left. He had no idea who you were. So I'm sitting
Perfect.
there going,
That's the way I like it. Just fucking and
I'm
then
going,
talk to them about
I'm getting
nonsense.
everybody going like, does anybody get who's sitting right in front of us? And I don't know whether to call you Biz, Paul, Mr. Bissonnette. I don't know what to say. So
My mom calls me Paul. That's pretty much the only person on the planet that calls me Paul. But listen, it's been a great ride. And I mean, as far as your following is concerned, just keep plugging away. I was fortunate enough where I had personally quite a few numbers on social media because that all started out when I was playing. I was kind of anti-Twitter, and my buddy Scotty Upshaw was like, "You got to jump on Twitter. You got to jump on Twitter. You'd be perfect for Twitter." And I went home that summer. I think that was after my second year, maybe in the NHL. Maybe it was after my first. I can't remember now. It's been so long, and CTV, of course, getting smacked in the head for that long. But I was sitting on the couch after training every day, and I would notice that when you watch a TSN or Sportsnet or wherever it was, all of a sudden you'd see a person's tweet come up, and it got me more intrigued. So one day after training, I signed up and started it. And it got crazy right off the hop because people are like, oh my God, this guy who plays professional sports is saying some pretty crazy shit on Twitter. But it was not a lot of people were on it. Like I bet you there was only a few teams on it. I don't even know if the Coyotes hockey team had a Twitter at that point. So I was joking around about the Kovalchuk contract. And I was like, oh, how many lap dances can you get for whatever he was going to sign for? And just being silly, really. And then after the NHL had shut down his contract because it was very front loaded and they were manipulating the CBA some way, I wrote a tweet like, oh, sorry, communists, back to the Soviet because they rejected his deal. If I would have said that today, I'd be fucking done. I bet you they would have ended my NHL career. So my agent had caught wind that I said that. And I was kind of like, guys, it's not racist. Like maybe I guess you can consider it prejudice and something that I would definitely not tweet out in today's age. nor am I hanging my hat on that tweet either. I mean, I would, if I could take it back, I wouldn't have said it. So I get a call from my agent. He goes, "Hey, what the fuck is this Twitter shit?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" They're like, "You got to get," he goes, "You got to get off of this. Nothing good can come of this," is what he told me. So he goes, "You might get a call from the league and get fined, suspended. Like, who knows? Maybe they'll rip up your contract." So I got spooked. So I got off Twitter. I deleted my first ever Twitter account. I just got the fuck right off. Well, I get a call from the Coyotes PR saying, "Hey, were you telling people that we made you delete your Twitter? Because we have people messaging the team threatening to like cancel season tickets and shit if you don't let me get back on, let Paul get back on Twitter." So I told them what had happened, and they said, "Hey, listen, we're going to allow you to get back on. Just tone it down a little bit." Oh, well, I mean, I have a very difficult time toning it down, but we slowly rolled it back in. That's why I called it BizNasty 2.0, and the rest is history. And I would say a lot more positive than negative has come. And for the first time ever, my agent was wrong, where something good actually did come of it.
Did you send him a a case of Pink Whitney just to say you might have been wrong on that one?
I think I gave him enough with 3% of those contracts. No, but on a serious note, I'm really close with Mark Guy, my agent. I had him my entire career. That's the thing that I'm most fortunate for, is all the relationships and people I got to meet along the way. And I think that I was destined, because I love socializing and I love talking to so many different people involved with the game and fans of the game, that I thought that this was my true calling, because it brings joy to me, and to see that it brings joy to others is what fucking, like, I mean, that's like what keeps you going. And I know, we talked about your following, and although maybe small on a comparison to Chiclets, but doesn't it feel nice as it slowly builds and you get people out, even outside at the rinks, recognizing you? It kind of feels nice, doesn't it? It's like we're growing something. We're doing something very positive for a game that's given us so much.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's been a lot of fun, and I mean, you're on the top end of that, and it's fun to track what you guys are doing, and I'm on such a smaller scale compared to what you're doing. But like you say, as it grows, it's a ton of fun to interview all you different successful people. So
Okay, so there's a few things that we can go with that. Like guys like Elliot Friedman and certain guys who were in media that didn't even have the playing background. To me, I tip my cap and I say, you guys have grinded and put the time in and the work in. And any of these podcasts that start popping up now and even in the future with other retired guys, I never want it to be a conversation of like, "Oh, you're copying these guys," or "Oh, you're following this path." Because first of all, there was guys before us doing hockey podcasts, maybe not to the magnitude. And you're going to vibe with a past player, maybe more so than we did on our podcast, and you're going to bring more out of them. You may have a larger connection where you have friends who know him, where to ask him about other personal stories that we would have never known. So like, you guys interviewing Ty Domi would have came out differently than us interviewing Ty Domi. So let's just keep.
FYI, fucking Ty Domi that was legendary, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was funny to hear the breakdown of the Philadelphia Flyers fan and how long that went. I had no idea that had happened. And and there, another thing that came about that was the talk of the women's hockey, and it's hard because we understand that right now it hasn't up to this point been a sustainable product. So it's hard to have a long conversation about it without acknowledging the fact that there are things that may have to change on their side of things away from traditional hockey in order to help sell it. That's just right, because it's proven that it hasn't been able to sustain itself the way it is now, with so many different variables, like maybe getting more support, of course, from the NHL and NHLPA, getting more brands involved. I know our podcast and myself want to get involved where we can direct a lot of people to watching the product. So it may have to get consumed in a different way than the NHL does, but we got to tinker around with it. And I guess to start the conversation and maybe have to point out some things that aren't working. People see it as such a bad thing, like we're putting it down. It's like, well, no, it's just sometimes things need other things in order to help sell it. So I guess the reason why I kind of got into that was because that was kind of fresh on the plate from that Ty Domi interview. And something that I've been thinking about the last 24 hours. I've hopped on the phone with some people high up in women's hockey where we're trying to talk about approaching it in order to grow it and see what we can do in order to help. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that I'm sure you know, especially when you're involved with media, and reasons why you do what you do that some people will never understand because they've never dipped their toe into it. They don't know about who you have to protect and maybe the way you need to word things or how it needs to be approached. So it's been a wild ride and definitely a learning process in every facet of the category.
Yeah, well, sticking with women's hockey for 2 seconds. I mean,
Yeah,
the things, the best thing they got going for them is every year that passes, women's hockey gets better, and more women are playing it,
absolutely.
which means it's just going to continue to get better. Which is, eventually it's going to get there. It's in a competitive world right now. There's a lot of different things taking everybody's time.
Absolutely. And that's another conversation that doesn't get brought up. Now, the lacrosse league is coming up. Also, the outdoor lacrosse league that Paul Rabel's got going, whereas is you need to get people's attention. And as you said, there's record amounts of girls signing up for minor hockey. So this isn't something that's going to happen overnight or at the snap of a finger. This is something that's new and that may take 15 to 20 years to get to a place where it's even sustainable financially. So it'll help if the proper conversation is being had as opposed to just ignoring things that may be hurting it, considering it's taking the traditional path like the NHL did, where it could potentially hurt it. You sometimes have to think of new ways in order to promote something. So we've been rambling on a little bit for this, but definitely something that I've been thinking about. And one thing I said on Instagram today was I'd say the most important person in my life ever has been my mother. And I know what women can provide. There's no way has to do with PC culture or sexism. This has to do with, hey, these ladies deserve a fair shake. Let's provide them with all the resources in order to potentially create a sustainable product where we change the game forever. We have more consumers of it. Why would I not want women's hockey to succeed? That just means more for us to do. You may gain an audience of 2,000 fans because of it. If they grow, we grow. It's a rebound effect.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I got a question. My father's in town, and I told him you were coming on tonight, and he
Sure.
goes, he's 63. He knows who his BizNasty is. He goes,
Okay.
oh, BizNasty, yeah, I've heard him. The first question he asks is, how did he get the nickname BizNasty?
It was given to me by a teammate named Steven Dixon, and that was when I'd had some problems early on with Pittsburgh. So my first training camp, I went there as an 18-year-old defenseman. I almost made the team. Then I came back, and they drafted a lot better. They started getting better as an organization. They had depth at the American Hockey League level. And it just so happens the year that I came in when I'd finally signed. So I went to camp as an 18-year-old, signed as a 20-year-old, went to the training camp, thinking, okay, I'll probably play in the American Hockey League to start the year because I'm probably not going to make the NHL club. Well, I get sent down to the American Hockey League in training camp there. I had 4 goals and 2 assists as a defenseman in our 4 preseason games. And Terrian calls me in and he sends me down. And I was fucking pissed because I worked my balls off and I competed to go make a team. And when I got sent down to the AHL right away, I wasn't poopy pants. I fucking went and worked and played hard in those exhibition games, as you can tell by my stats. And so I was a little vocal about it after, and I think that might have put me behind the 8 ball with that organization. Fast forward, they ended up cleaning house with all the management. Shiro comes in. Todd Richards was the American Hockey League coach. I really don't think they liked me, even more so. So things got worse and worse, and I ended up getting sent down to the East Coast Hockey League for basically the better part of 2 years. And after the rift had continued a little bit, I was in the last year of my entry level contract, and I'm thinking, holy shit, like, am I going to be washing cars next year? Am I just going to be bouncing around to another ECHL city? And I end up, I made the All-Star team in the ECHL for the second time. I think I'm going to be going there, and I end up getting called up again. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, like, this is a little odd. I thought for sure this was the end of it. First game in the American League after they called me up, I believe it was in Philadelphia, We played Philly. I think it was on the road. And I was listed at forward, fourth line left wing. And I'm like, but then the light bulb went off. I'm like, these guys pretty much want me to switch positions and become a fighter. And I'd been fighting a little bit in the ECHL. So at that point in my career, I had the opportunity to either decide to be stubborn and stick with being a defenseman, which I played Team Canada with. I played, ECHL All-Star games or one, and was invited to another one. And that's when I just started fighting. And when I started fighting, my roommate, Steven Dixon, he's like, you nasty bees, you bees nasty. And like the whole room laughed because he was such a silly guy. And the way it came out, the delivery was incredible. So it stuck. And then all of a sudden the fans started calling it to me. And then that following summer, I ended up signing a 2-year extension with Pittsburgh. So that whole year I played 50 games up, maybe a little bit more. I ended up having over 30 fights. And I was getting oh, buddy, it was hell. It was hell. I was getting the shit kicked out of me by guys like Nasty Marasti, but it was one of those things where I was like, hey, if you think you're going to have a sniff at the National Hockey League, you're going to have to learn how to do this. Some people, I always get made fun of online for like how many fights I lost. People don't realize, like, I just started doing it because I knew it was my only way to the NHL. Then that's when I started doing the jersey jab because these guys were so much stronger and bigger than me. Keep in mind, when I hopped into the American League to start fighting, half these guys were on the juice. So I was already behind the 8 ball. Then I had to fight guys like Nasty Marasti, where when I'm punching this guy, I would punch him the first 3 or 4 punches of the fight, and then I would feel like my hand was broken, and then he would just take over and break my nose and just fuck me up. So that's why I started doing the jersey jab. And a lot of people were like, oh, you fought like a fucking pussy. And I'm like, I know. I'm fucking well aware. But look at, I fought like
some of the toughest guys in the show or on the.
Yeah, listen, I fought some of the toughest fuckers, and I was doing the jersey jab to protect myself, and my nose still looks like this. So could you have imagined if I would have been fighting like those old school guys, which they don't get enough credit, the way they used to go toe to toe? Those guys are fucking nuts.
Frickin' Nasty Marasti, speaking of him specifically, I just played him before I came down here. We're still playing senior hockey back in Saskatchewan, and he's playing for Meadow Lake, his hometown.
I would say the most thing I'm grateful for taking the path I did was seeing and being exposed to some of the stuff I was in the minor leagues. ECHL, I mean, I loved my time in Wheeling. It was so fucking silly. Our bus would break down, our sleeper bus on the way to Johnstown, and our boosters would be following us. So our boosters would help us unload all the gear into the booster bus. We would switch buses, and they would wait for it to get repaired if it ever did. And we would get to the game in their bus, and who knows where they were, fucking stranded. So just silly stories like that. Glenn Patrick, our coach, he was a fucking treat. He used to carry around this briefcase with him to games, and there might have been 1 or 2 pieces of paper in that briefcase. And when he would get on the bus, especially if it was a bit of a longer trip, his son Curtis Patrick would be packing the cooler at the front that had all of our waters in it. And he'd go, whoa, 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 hey, let me throw a few of these in there. And he would crack open his briefcase, and there'd be like a 12-pack of beers and 2 pieces of paper in his leather fucking briefcase. So I think we watched video once with Glenn Patrick as head coach, and it was after our first game of the season, and we got shelled. We played like dog shit. And he had Shaun Collins, our player captain, wheel in like you were in elementary school. Did I say elementary? Did I say that properly? Sorry, I got a little high before this. Like elementary school where you bring the VHS with the TV, and he just hit the play button, and we watched the whole game with stops in between whistles, and we were in the room for 2 periods, and finally Collins, our captain, came up and like hit it and was like, yeah, I think we get the point, boys. It's just not good enough. Let's just bring it next game. So it's just like some of the silly, like we're all inside the locker room looking at each other like, this is fucking hell. Like we know we play like shit. We have to watch another 2 hours of this fucking shit. ECHL, I had this kid who was all over me all the time and just a fucking pest. He was a rat. So I beat the shit out of him in a fight. and their organization, like their fan base and the team in general were just so annoying to me. But hey, it was a rivalry. It was with the Reading Royals that it made me so happy that I beat the shit out of this guy. And that was on the road in their building. And I kind of gave her like the Hulkster after, and they're like, fuck you. So then we played a home and home against them. They came to Wheeling the next night, and we used to give away a player the game belt, WWE belt.
WWE belt?
I said, give me that fucking belt. I had the trainer put it on the bench for warm-up. I skated on, did one lap, went on the bench, grabbed it, and went and stretched at center ice with it. And I was staring him down the whole fucking time. I said, you know who's boss, boys. I said, anybody else want a taste of this? And they sent in the tape to the league, and I ended up getting suspended a game. And I couldn't play the following game until I sent in a $150 cashier's check to pay my fine.
$150 fine.
$150 worth every fucking penny.
Best $150 you ever spent.
I'd stroke them another check just if I could get that. I would pay $1,000 right now if I could get to see the clip and see their play. They had a few players on their team that were shaking their head and they were disgusted. They thought I disrespected the game, and I said, no, there's nothing more disrespectful than that fucking rat running around thinking he can just. But hey, at the end of the day, man. Those are the things that I think brought the fans in, and they got to enjoy the storylines and yeah, man, it was some silly shit going down in the minors.
You asked Domi. I was listening earlier today, actually, on my way back from ASU. I stopped and interviewed Tyler Bush, who was a guest on Spittin Chiclets. Him and Johnny Walker there for you guys. You had asked him if he gets butterflies before fights, and Domi said no, he never ever, not even Probert, which I think shocked every listener and shocked you. When you were fighting, did you ever get butterflies before you fought anyone?
I get nervous before anything I do. I got nervous before I came on this interview. I get nervous before we do podcasts. I just think that's a natural emotion that I care. I have been considering going to a doctor and talking about these beta blockers, which I've been researching a little bit. And basically they just slow your heart rate down. I think they're for people who have high blood pressure. But they slow your heart rate. A lot of people who do public speaking and actors, they take this before going on set. And it just really it slows your heart rate down. That way you're able to process and communicate at a rate that you would if it was just you and your buddies in a room, as opposed to talking in front of maybe 200 people. So going back to Ty, that's why I always ask the fighters, who's the toughest guy you fought? No. I want to know the psychological aspect of what was going through your head on a game day, and whether you were nervous or how you approach things. And especially for the old guys, they didn't really have much video to watch. Where when I was coming up, I got to go to YouTube. YouTube had started out, so I got to go watch Mirasti. I got to go watch some of these scary guys that I had never even seen in person. I could see them fight before I'd fought them, which may have saved me from pain and a bigger nose than this. Could you fucking imagine? We wouldn't be able to get it on the screen here. I guess people can't see this; they're listening. But
what's the best?
It's better in person.
What's the best chirp you ever heard? You're a guy who's a talker. What was the best chirp you ever had come back at you that just made you chuckle?
Oh God. I can't remember one off the top of my head. I remember getting into Avery in the minors with him. He just came up to the red line because I was asked by a media member for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins about how polarizing he is, and the fact that at that point he had already played his career in New York. He'd signed with Dallas, and then he made the comments, got in a lot of trouble in Dallas. I don't know if they bought him out, or there was a trade with salary retention by Dallas back to New York. But part of the rehabilitation, quote unquote, was he had to start for the Hartford Wolfpack. So he had to get back in shape, and there was going to be a bit of a conditioning stint. And it just so happens that we played them during that period of time. So I just remember him coming up to the red line in warmups, and he called me over. He goes, "Why the fuck are you talking about me in the media?" And Shaun Avery's condescending voice and his whole mentality, which I think is hysterical. Some people hate his guts. Some people love him. He's still one of the more polarizing figures in hockey history. But
He still is. He still
so
is, even if not playing.
I know, and the more I've gotten to know him, I really enjoy conversation with him. I completely understand why some people can't stand him, but that's not going to change how I feel about him. I'm a free thinker. I can respect everyone's opinion if it comes with a grain of salt. Um, but yeah, no. As far as the premeditated chirps are concerned, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I just remember that funny incident, which of course that night somehow it went from me and Shaun having something to him talking me into fighting Sugden. And then I had to fight Sugden and he beat me up and Sean Avery won the mental warfare as well as the physical. And he didn't even have to get scratched.
I've been wondering a lot about you, switching a little bit of the topic here. You do the color commentating for Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah.
How difficult, like you got this show, you're Spittin Chiclets, where you get to be you, and that's what everybody loves. And then you go to color commentating and you got to be very PG. Is that a tough transition or not so much?
No, not really. I would have a hard time doing anything on a national network because I'm not very polished. I think when people hear me speak, it's a little bit like it's I sound like I'm in the locker room. I'll drop an F bomb here and I'll fuck that and I want to. I've talked about a lot of sex on our podcast because I don't put sex on a pedestal and the women that I'm having some consensual sex with don't either. I mean, we're pretty, we fuck for sport, and we joke around about it. That's why I told the shitty Cindy story on the podcast. Cause we just, that's the stuff we talk about. There's, there's also a large female demographic that we have that enjoy that too. So it has nothing to do with guy or girl, but, I do enjoy the Coyotes job. It just takes a little bit more out of me in order to stay polished. There's a lot of crutch words because I'd rather say fuck as opposed to, just maybe not saying anything.
That's right.
Or being able to fire off like some of these guys on national TV do. I talk about Patrick Sharp all the time. Like for him to step in and be automatic where he looks at the camera like that, I'm looking at the floor, at the ceiling, I'm eating my boogers and they're just like, oh, let's get the break here. Let's get and he's just and some people that's just the way their mind works. Mind you, he didn't have to eat Sugden and Morasti punches for a career. He got to put the puck in the back of the net. But it's I don't operate like that. My brain doesn't fire on those cylinders where I commend those people who do, but that's never going to be me.
How hard was it to hang up your skates? I mean, I know you had a lot going on as soon as you were done, but how hard was it to walk away from playing?
You know what? It wasn't as hard as it would have been if I wouldn't have found something after my time in the NHL. It was a big wake-up call to go through what I went through, not being able to get another NHL deal that summer, having talks with Washington that they were trying to fit me in and they were going to sign me to a 2-year NHL deal. And they had a rule. They don't put guys on one ways in the minors and they couldn't shed an NHL contract. Listen, that could have been bullshit. They might have that might have just been keeping me at bay to on the hook for summer, but I didn't have any other options. So I was praying for that one. So the season, I went to a PTO with St. Louis. It was awesome. The group was incredible. I had such a good time. That's why I was so happy for them to win the Stanley Cup. But being back in that environment and all of a sudden the PTO was over and I was back on my couch at home and then I had to stay out in shape on my own and go find ice time on my own. I had fell into a depression. I was there for, I think, 3 weeks. And by week 2, I couldn't even get off the couch. And part of, and this isn't a sob story. People have far greater hurdles in life than some fucking NHL guy who'd already made a few million being on the couch because he couldn't get another NHL contract. But the mind takes over. So I just felt like I was achy and sore. And I was sleeping 15 hours a day. And I just fell into this funk where thankfully Don Maloney for the Coyotes had given, they offered me a PTO to go to Portland in order to start playing. So that instantly when I got that, my depression was gone. Like it was like poof vamoose. Boom. Everything's normal. My endorphins are pumping again. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I get back to the locker room environment because that's what I love the most about playing. So so I go there and I'll say this, for really the first time in my life, I really didn't connect with the people in the locker room. I don't think the coach liked me. It just, something was off. One of the games when I was there, we ended up playing against Manchester Monarchs, and my old coach, Mike Stuthers, was there. And I went and talked to him after, and I could sense that I thought that the end was near. And I said to him, I said, hey, listen, I don't think things are working out that great here. I don't think I'm really fitting in. I said, if you guys maybe got a spot, like who knows? He goes, give me a call if something happens. About a week later, I got snipped, and right away I felt that depression again. And within 30 minutes, I call Stutzy, and I was like, Stutzy, I said, I'm in a dark place. I said, I'm going to call in a favor. I said, I'll fucking fight for you guys. I'll be a healthy scratch. I'll do whatever. I'll fill water bottles. He knew that I would do that anyway. I said, I need a favor. So he goes, let me talk to Michael Fuda and Dean Lombardi. So he called them, and he called me back. He says, pack your shit. He says, drive down here. I think it was like an hour and 15-minute drive. And I signed a PTO with Manchester after I'd been released by Portland. And sure, everyone knows the story. We go on to win the Calder Cup that year. We lost like seven more games since I was there in regulation during the season. We lost 3 games in playoffs. The best group of guys you could ever hope for. And Stuthers, when he called me back, he goes, pack your shit. He goes, there's only one rule though. Dean Lombardi says, stay the fuck off that tweeter. So I said, I went dark on Twitter for about 3 years where I was not very vocal. I didn't chime in on anything. I basically went away, and it was a good time for me too. And hockey and getting back in the locker room environment were so much more important to me than doing the social media thing. And the Calder Cup was one of the greatest hockey moments of my life. I ended up signing another year extension with Ontario because they'd started the California division for the AHL, which I thought was a brilliant idea. Keep those teams closer. So I signed with the Ontario Reign and then ended up signing one other deal with them afterward. And that was the year where I tore both my ACLs. I told the story on our podcast. So at that point, I was like, hey, it's time. That Christmas, I came to Arizona and I talked to Rich Nair, who hired me for the Coyotes. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to be done here. I said, do you guys have any opening? And he said, I think we may have something opening up. Let's talk. I'll talk with some people and we'll see. And then the rest is history.
So
that was a long answer to
no, it's good,
with
man.
the hanging them out, you know?
No, it's good. That's what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for the answer, not the 2-word answer, right? Like, yeah. I want to hear the story. Everybody wants to hear the story, Biz.
Well, some people might want to hear your voice too.
No, it's good. People tune in to me to hear my guess. That's what I search for, is their stories.
I saw you had Corey Cross the other day.
For the second time. Yeah, Corey, he brought you up because I believe you guys fought.
I fought Corey Cross?
Was it Corey Cross or was it Lance Ward? Because I had Lance Ward on the day before him too.
Maybe it was Lance Ward.
Lance Ward has a similar story to you. Lance was a defenseman all growing up, was drafted 10th overall by the New Jersey Devils, held out on his contract, and then got selected again when he was 20 by Florida, and they converted him into a fourth-line fighter. And so he played fourth line, and then he went on to be with Anaheim. And he's one of the two. It must have been Lance then, talks about being in the minors and fighting you. But,
okay, well,
yeah,
some of these guys I can't even remember. There's a few memorable ones, like the heavyweight belt.
Yeah,
I had one with Frank Littlejohn for the Elmira Jackals. He ended up getting some pretty good shots on me, and my jersey came up over my head. And I had so many people bringing that up to me when I first got on social media. And I'm like, holy shit, these Elmira fans are crazy. I'm like, they still want my head.
Well, how did you get on Spittin Chiclets? Like, how did that come about, Biz? Like, would that have been in the works for a while there?
Yeah, me and Whit talked about it. And And then finally one day, I think in order to stir it up, in order to get me to join on, he tweeted it out. I was still playing, and that's when I was going through the Dean Lombardi no social media phase,
Yeah.
which once again, I like that. Rear Admiral reached out to him. Is like, hey, want to do this? And then they started it out. And I always knew that I wanted to jump on with them. I just had to wait till I retired, because if I was going to do it, as you can see, I do it one way and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm swearing,
Full
I'm telling
throttle.
kill
Yep.
stories, I'm fucking telling war stories, whatever it may be, right? And so I went on as a guest a few times, and a lot of people were, of course, like, "Oh, you should fucking get Biz to co-host it," and blah blah blah. And we'd been working it out behind the scenes, and then I had that film project that I did when I first retired. Um, I dove right into media. I said, let's see what I can do in front of the camera. And some people may love it, some people may hate it. It was a risk I took in order to try to learn a different side of the media industry. I want to be a Swiss Army knife. I want to be able to do it all: radio, television, content. Which people laugh when I say that word. If these people knew how much you could monetize content for, everyone and their fucking grandma would be pushing content. It's fucking insane how lucrative it is. Okay. So that's another reason why, I'm now I have another competition, so to speak. So I said to them, I said, why don't you guys buy this project? We launch it and announce that I'm going to join the podcast, because I still think there's far more that we can do with it. And I think at the time they were averaging between about 50 and 70,000 listeners an episode. We average over 500,000 now. Easily. Some get into the 700,000-800,000 range, depending on the guests. We're in the process of continuing to grow our YouTube channel, and eventually this thing will plateau, and that's fine. I have bigger dreams for it. I want to do more with it. But it's also fun having the competition aspect of trying to grow this and seeing how far we can take it. Because if anyone knows me, they know if I'm doing something, I'm going fucking balls deep. I work my listen. I might not have been the most skilled guy, but work ethic is something that my mother instilled in me, and I would challenge anyone in the industry to try to keep up.
So who are some of the white whales you got sitting out there that you still want to bring on the podcast then?
Oh, before we jump to the next thing, going back to the other guys as well, who obviously started Spittin Chiclets, like RA, he thought of the logo, he drew it. He drives the bus. Whit is such an incredible storyteller. He gets incredible guests on. He has credibility because he was far and above the better player. Mike Grinelli, that one happened by accident too, where he has became a Swiss Army knife and is learning daily on how to expand and grow in other ways, whether it be merchandise, whether it be pond hockey, whether it be editing. It's insane how hard this kid works. And we all bring something different. And what they didn't have before was maybe the numbers in order to direct the people there. Like, they were getting not as many Canadian listeners, which is crazy. That's Canadian sport, where I had a huge Canadian demographic. So we all brought something in order to bring what it is today. And I love the mix, because RA is like the hardcore Boston guy who has a fan perspective. And although he may be naive about the way some things are going in the locker room, he's going to bitch about things from fan perspective, where we're going to be more biased towards the player. So it's you got to have somebody not just nodding their head all the time. You got to have them saying, well, maybe they're looking at it like this. So it's great. And I love the different personalities that we do bring. With that, and with the size comes, some negativity that you have to deal with. I would consider myself, I would say I'm a little bit sensitive to it, but I'm usually sensitive to the stuff that's unjust, where someone says something and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's one, not what I said. You have no comprehension skills. Or, oh, like they should ditch such and such, or they should fucking, change him up with it. It's like, fuck you. This is what it is. We are going to have our flaws. There's going to be personalities on the podcast that you do not like. There may be 50,000 listeners of Spittin Chiclets that hate my guts. Well, sorry, man, I'm not fucking going anywhere. And the 450 other thousand people that are listening get to enjoy it. So stop being selfish and lick my nuts. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned, those other guys, and how we are one family, and the size that this has gotten is very overwhelming. And we are like we couldn't be more grateful at the people who listen. So I've rambled on a little too much there.
No, it's all good, man. I would say the group of you are feed off each other extremely well. It's what makes it so engaging to listen to every single time, right? Like specifically you and Wet, when you guys got rambling on about like Gritty, that had to have been frick 6 months ago, but that was some of the funniest shit I've heard on a podcast ever.
What's amazing about it too is you'll have different people come up to you and tell you, hey, this was my favorite interview, where you're like, wow, like that's interesting. Like that was, because one thing that they said really resonated with them. Resonate. I
Yeah.
always struggle with that. I always throw an extra G in there. Is there a G in resonate?
No.
Fuck. I'm
Resonate.
French Canadian. Fucking lay off. No, I'm just kidding. But no, it's
who's been your favorite guest to have on? Actually, I'll back that up 1 second. Who's been the first guest you had on that made you be like, holy shit, this guy's coming on the podcast?
Well, I mean, when Sid and Nate said they were going to do it, we were kind of like, this is too good to be true.
Yeah. Well, you guys have had with the guys current playing, right? Like those two, you've had McDavid and Draisaitl. Like,
yeah. I don't know. It's anyone with a big name. I mean, we're grateful for anyone that wants to come on our podcast. Eventually, we want to get through every hockey personality who wants to come on and say they have a story. To me, it's the ones that where I'm just listening and laughing. I mean, I don't know. There's so many that I could think of. Sheldon Surrey, I loved having him on. Brant Myers was incredible. Tim Stapleton's one of our most downloaded. Joe Vitale was incredible because of the story. One thing it was just so powerful was the fact, and I just started dating a girl, and it goes back to the women's hockey, how women are usually the most important people in men's lives. They have the more empathetic side. They're the nurturers. Like, I'm a big sap, dude. Like, my girlfriend, she'll like hold me and shit. So when he talked about when he was going through that dark time and his wife, and one thing about Joe, he's very into his faith. And when he was going through this rut, similar to the one I described, where he couldn't get off the couch and wasn't motivated, he'd gotten asked to go to a men's league game with some alumni from the Blues or whatever. And his wife, he wasn't going to go. And his wife was like, go, like, just like get up and go. Like, maybe it'll make you happy. And because he ended up getting off the couch that night going, because Kelly Chase took a job with the Discovery property and opened that up in Nashville, a radio gig had opened up, and he stepped into basically what I do for the Coyotes into that St. Louis role. Well, he's a great personality. He all of a sudden now has a purpose in life. He's excelled at it tenfold in the short time he's done it. And his first year in it, they end up going all the way and winning the Stanley Cup. So he's a hometown St. Louis boy. So his wife telling him to get off the fucking couch and, go do something and, go be happy, turned into him turning his life around. Who knows where it would have went from there? We don't know. And it was so cool to hear that and how positive his message was about it. And he was at the time, and maybe still is, our most downloaded episode, just because of how raw and real it was, and those everyday issues that a lot of people deal with that they may not think that people who are playing in the NHL deal with, or people who have any type of stardom or who are quote unquote famous. So it was very cool.
Well, that is really cool. Well, and that's been one of the cool things I know I've experienced. Whenever you get to sit down and hear a guy's story and get to really sit and talk with them long term or a long version, long form.
Yeah.
Word.
Oh, buddy, this is the best. It's
the
best, and you can cover a lot of bases, and some people might, I like to cover a lot of angles because as I've gotten older, I'm far more empathetic than I used to be, where I say it's naive that to not think that some people would have been thinking from this perspective, and everybody had different upbringings, and they're going to be biased to way that, to whatever they're biased towards. So, you just try to be a little bit more cognizant of trying to be more sympathetic. Some shit, I mean, mind you, some shit you can't even, you can't you can't compromise. You're like, yo, you're fucking far too crazy right now. This is absurd. Just go on Twitter, you know?
Oh, Twitter. There's all you gotta do is watch you for a couple days and see you put out a tweet and then some
I
of the
know I was
people
battling with
respond.
a couple feminist female podcasts today, trying to explain that me saying I want to buy a women's team and I support women's hockey isn't me bashing women's hockey. It's
Why were they
hard.
upset about that?
I have no fucking clue because they have no comprehension skills. I mean, as I said earlier, it goes back to the conversation has to be had about what are the things that are not working, what are things we can improve in order to make the consumer happier, therefore want to purchase it more in order to make it sustainable enough so everybody can get paid fairly. But they don't want to hear the conversation. They just want you to stroke the check. And when you tell them, hey, we've tried that, and if you don't actually figure out a way where it can sustain itself, we're just going to be right back where we started. But it's much far easier to just point the finger and bitch online than actually spend time and energy trying to change it. Instead of trying to bring someone down, trying to change it, exert energy doing something in order to grow it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that should be in every conversation, not just the one we're having. That's the hardest part. And as you keep growing is it's far easier to rip you and bring what you're doing down than it is for them to go create and put energy towards something that they can build. It's just like, that's why I think, I mean, we're kind of getting deep now. We're going Deep Space Nine right now. That's when the weed really kicks in.
Who came up with Pink Whitney? I know it's Whitney's drink.
Yeah.
But did you guys approach New Amsterdam's or did they approach you?
Yes. I begged them to do it. I got shut down by Barstool, and I don't know whether they took it to New Amsterdam before they shut it down, but I have a business mind. I have to take CBD. I actually founded a company. That's another way. One of the ways I stay busy is on the business side of things. But my mind just doesn't stop. It's a curse. And me and my business partner, we just constantly just nonstop ideas. And I say most of the time we're able to execute them. And now it's at the point now where if I call Erica, the CEO of Barstool, or talk to Dave and I say, I want to do this, they give me the green light because they understand that I'm going to execute it. Me and my friend Jeff Jacobson went and bought the domains and started filing for everything because they didn't take us seriously. And we said, okay, we're going to go do it on our own. And even when I mentioned it to Ryan Whitney, he was like, Biz, like, I don't think a lot of people are going to buy it. I think we should just kind of let it ride out for what the hashtags and everyone jumping on the wagon now. I think it's going to fizzle. And I said, I think you're fucking on crack cocaine, but okay. So I kind of got the ball rolling. I started figuring out logistics, if we ended up doing it ourselves, how long till we can get it on shelf, nonstop. So Ryan Whitney was on his way to a Halloween party. And his wife in the car goes, hey, you guys should do that Pink Whitney and bottle it. And he goes, fuck, Biz said that. So they called me. And whenever Whit could call me at 4 a.m, I'm answering the phone. Okay. Cause it's hard to get him on the hammer because he's usually working on his golf game or he's got a family. And I understand that. And if I had 20 million in the bank, maybe even 25 now, I might be on an island somewhere you may never see me. So he calls me and he goes, hey, my wife just said we should do the Pink Whitney. And I said, okay, well, we've kind of already started. Me and Jeff, we filed for the domains and we talked to Barstool about it, but they kind of just were like, eh. So him getting on board was extremely helpful and me going back to them. And they said, you know what? I think they had mentioned it to New Amsterdam. They said, New Amsterdam's looking into it and yeah, there may be something here. And next thing you know, that just kind of got the ball rolling and it took on a mind of its own. And it's fun, man. It's at least in the States it sucks that alcohol is so expensive in Canada, but people in the States get to enjoy a bottle for $10. It's a cultural thing. It's kind of, it's a shot. It's like, hey, like, we're in the locker room. Like we want everyone who used to play hockey or any sport or really anyone who wants to learn about hockey. This is how we used to shoot the shit in the locker room. This is authentic. This is 100%. Ask any of my teammates ever if that's how I used to talk in the locker room, and they'll tell you, yeah. So it's fun, as I said earlier, how much people like it, and it's very humbling, and I love them back.
Well, here, we'll put it this way. I don't drink vodka. I find myself drinking Pink Whitney. That is when we can get it. Because I had given you a rough time at the rink when we first met. In Canada, yeah, it's expensive, but nobody gives a shit. The problem is that it sells out. It
Yeah.
sells out unbelievably fast. And I know the Canadian listeners are going to want to know. You guys have probably been addressing it on your on Spittin Chiclets, but is it going to get fixed in Canada? Because I mean, like,
Yes.
it's a little bit nuts how quickly it sells. To the point, Biz, in Lloyd specifically, they had a policy at one liquor store. You could only have one bottle per person.
Sure. Yeah, I won't bore everyone with the Pink Whitney talk too long, but I think they underestimated Canada a little bit, and of course, it always takes a little bit longer to get it in Canada. One of the problems is they planned on doing 100,000 cases to start it out, planning on that might last us 6 months. They just didn't know, and we sold 1 million bottles within 3 weeks. So they were like, holy shit, where the fuck are we going to get the glass? There's so much more to it that I was like, oh fuck yeah, I guess like they have to now produce millions and millions of bottles and you got to find the glass. So they had to alter how they were going to produce some of their other alcohols in order to give us more factory time to produce at the rate that people are consuming it. So I was a little upset that we were so slow in the process with Canada.
But that's nuts, man.
Right. It is fucking nuts. But from our standpoint, we had to be sympathetic and be like, yeah, like we didn't know it was going to be this crazy either. We thought it was going to have a nice response. And then Canada was a whole different ballgame. The problem with Canada, and it won't be in January, February moving forward, is there just wasn't enough cases being allocated there and or had availability to once it was open borders. We're in the process of getting it in the LCBO, which should happen very soon. I'd say it's going to be a well-oiled machine into Canada by no later than the end of February. So
the boys will be over the moon to hear that. Heck, the ladies will be over the moon to hear that too.
Yeah, and like I said, I want to do so much with it. I want that to be a collaboration with women's hockey potentially, whether they're interested in it or not. Working with Barstool, it's hard because sometimes, as much as you'd maybe want to help a cause, there's just this stigma about it. And I get that some things maybe have been said by people in the company that people aren't down with, and that at the time were disrespectful that they won't apologize for. But you can't let one person and maybe like a joke or just them being rude be like, speak for the entire company. It's like, be a free thinker. Like, some people don't even want to dig and find out their own information. They just want to read online and just cling to an answer. Is that the word I'm looking? Cling to
No, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you get what the fuck I'm saying. So yeah. So
I gotta ask about Justin Bieber. Is that gonna happen?
We're trying. We're in the process. I've been messaging with Bennington. He's in touch with Bieber's people. I have no fucking clue. It would be cool. I don't know.
Well, I mean, whether you like Bieber or don't like Bieber, that guy has more followers than everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
And that'd be pretty epic to see him go on some breakaways against Bennington. That'd probably get more pay-per-view than freaking the latest UFC fight.
He's got some good hands. He's not.
He's
a bit of an ankle skater, a very weak stride.
Who do you think Bieber's really playing on the ice against? Nobody's really attacking him too hard.
Man, I mean, fuck, man. The guy's busy making platinum records. Like, give him a break. I'm a Biebs guy. I wouldn't listen to all his music. I just don't. He's a Canadian. I got to support my fellow Canadians. And what was the other thing too is I cried watching his documentary of his come up. I get very emotional on flights, and there was a scene in it where I started crying, and sure enough, I was on a flight to Saskatoon to go play in Jared Stoll's golf tournament, and it was the flight was out of Toronto, and there was probably 5 or 6 NHL guys on the flight. So I'm trying to like cover it up that I'm not crying to the Bieber doc. And I got Steve Ott sitting next to me being like, "Are you all right, dude? Like, what the fuck's going on over there?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing. Just like the dust in the plane here coming out of these vents." So yeah, Biebs. I love me some Biebs.
One other social media question that a couple of my buddies wanted to bring up is if you had the choice to go and become the Bachelor or go on the Bachelorette, what would you want to do?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't go on those.
You want to go on them?
No, I don't like how they're able to manipulate who you are on camera. They'll take a snippet and make you look like an asshole. I don't like that.
What if they just ran it 24/7 like the Truman Show, so they never clipped anything? Would you
Oh,
rather
that'd
be?
be
Would you rather be the
I
one
would
guy?
like I would you know what? Taking that back, I think I would like to be the Bachelor just to maybe expose the show for how stupid it is. Like when a girl was being overly sensitive, I'd be like, "Hey, you're being a complete psycho right now. This is not normal for you to be acting like this considering we've spoken 6 sentences to each other. This is this is giving you so many deductions right now that you're crying already and you don't even know my middle name. Is it not insane?"
I don't watch it. I got to be honest.
Like one girl was, so I have to watch it because I do the Bachelor reports with the Coyotes. That's one of my gigs with the Coyotes. Is that not insane?
That
And
is insane.
that's my funnest shit. Like I love doing that stuff because you're getting these guys who watch the Bachelor with their wives to talk about it. Vinny Hinostroza is hilarious. I'm going to try to get Kessel to chime in a few times this year. Brad Richardson, another amazing personality with the Arizona Coyotes. Vincent, did I say Vinny Hinostroza?
Yeah, yeah.
Christian Fisher's the other kid from Chicago who does it, but it is awesome just breaking it down and getting the insight and doing all that shit. So
How fun is the Coyotes this year, man? They're like freaking tearing it up.
they're awesome. They all love each other. They're a great team. It's hard. I would assume most of your demographic likes the old rough and tough style of play.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
It's a bit infuriating to me to watch the shift where the to me it's like the loudest people online now are the fucking whiny little media people that have never suited up. It's infuriating because like I made a point the other night. Like I think the Toronto Maple Leafs need a little bit of sandpaper in that lineup if they're going to push back on getting over the hump over Washington and Boston. Those teams are bullies. They make the playoffs and they're hard to play against and they're not as soft as other teams in the league, right? Well, look who's getting it done on the other side of the conference. Who would you say are the top teams? I mean, St. Louis
St. Louis
again.
Blues, yeah.
Well, how the fuck are they built?
The Vegas
They're built to
Golden Knights.
They're built to fucking destroy. Vegas Golden Knights go to the finals against Washington a few years ago. All fightings and fighters are done. Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Who was the storyline in that one? Or one of the Tom Wilson and Ryan Reeves, buddy. It's a fucking cockfight. Because when push comes to shove, playoff hockey, you're going to separate the men from the boys, and that is inevitable. Okay, big, heavy hockey along. I would consider the Chicago Blackhawks. They weren't a pushover when they won 3. They had some. I would say they had some sandpaper finish in those lineups. I don't think Taves has a bit of bite to his game. Maybe Kane doesn't, but he's good enough where he didn't fucking need it. But they had some guys on the they had Jarmelson. He fucking blocks Shaw. He's ready to lay it on the line. And then who won the other 2? Los Angeles Kings. How the fuck did they win them? Bullying teams around.
Heavy hockey.
Heavy 200-foot hockey. So I keep hearing about skills and analytics and I bet you the best team, some of the best teams puck possession wise are ones that are just full of skill and run up and down the ice all regular season long. But I mean, as we've seen, I mean, until Tampa gets over the hump, my theory works.
Who do you got winning the cup this year then?
I mean, I can't be a hypocrite. I really like Arizona, but I think that they might need a little bit more sandpaper.
You think they're adding somebody then at the deadline?
No, the one good thing about the Coyotes is the fact that they do have Lawson Krause. He's probably the only guy who's willing. Brad Richardson's willing to scrap, but he's not a heavy. But I think that they're probably not going to address that just because they're so well balanced and they're very deep. A guy like Connor Garland might be playing on your third or fourth line, where they're able to roll 4 lines and really sustain the pace of a high-speed game for the full 60 minutes. So that works for them. And I mean, now adding Hall, they look at their depth at center ice. They might not have they might not have a true number one center, but Christian Dvorak sure looks good. I would say minimum he's a 1B, if not a 1A.
Yeah.
Tough to compare him against like the Barkovs and the real top end guys, right? That's a fair assessment. Nick Schmaltz is another 1B. And then as a third line center, you got Derek Stepan, who, yeah, he's slowing down a little bit. He's not as offensive as he used to be, but having a third line matchup for him, he's gonna chew him up. He should.
I come from oil country. We're well versed in Taylor Hall. How's he looked so far for the Coyotes?
Great. It's the best roster he's ever played with.
Yeah, I can't.
And he's got guys who can snap it around back to him, and it's nice. He's fit in really well. I'm really happy that they made the move so early on, and gave him the opportunity to really get comfortable with his team, because it might have taken until now. We didn't know, but he got really hot off the start, and he's been. What an unbelievable addition. What a great job by John Chaika so far since he's taken over as GM. Holy fuck, we've gone long here, eh?
Yeah, sorry. I promised you 45 minutes and we've gone long. So I'll give you 2 more quick ones and then I'll let you go. Who's the coolest person you've met while doing the podcast? Like, that just kind of shocked you a little bit?
I guess no one person in particular. I guess I'm just shocked that how many people know about it, and Wayne Gretzky and Brett Hall are down to come on when we can get them in person. And
how good will Brett Hall be?
I would imagine that after that episode, if we get a few pops in them, that will probably 100% be the most downloaded and the one that makes fans be like, oh my God, this guy is a true fucking legend on and off the ice. His stories are.
Have you ever seen him speak at like a social event?
No.
Oh, he's amazing. Like
man. We need cocky guys like that. He's very confident in what he accomplished, and he wears it like a badge of honor. And same with JR. Like, I love that they're like that, and I love that they want to talk about themselves because they're interesting people. If nobody talked, it'd be fucking boring radio.
Absolutely.
And not only do these guys have the credibility, they have these insane stories, because back then there were no cell phones, and back then most of those guys were going out and having beers, and you know what I mean. No crazy stories ever started with a salad.
Not that I know of, anyways. I'm sure you probably got 1 or 2 up here.
Yeah, Shitty Cindy. That's how that one started out. Fucking romaine lettuce all over my fucking sheets.
Final question for you before I let you go. And I just once again want to say thanks for coming on. But I got my wife in town with me for the weekend or the week.
I got a bottle of Pink Whitney for you if you can get here quick enough tomorrow.
Done. I'll do that up.
I just come over. I got a case here. I got a couple more in the fridge too, so I usually just hand it out. I'd given mine all away at the ASU game.
I heard that. I heard you were hoping they won so they could have a good time, and then you brought them in a case and they lost a tight one.
I brought in a case for the trainers. I don't give any. I think it's against NCAA rules to give the players any gifts. So I just give them to the trainers.
Well, the trainers deserve it anyways.
Oh, that's why I would hope that players weren't touching that stuff. They need to study and avoid alcohol at all costs and not have any fun.
Absolutely. Now, if I was going to take my wife to do something in and around the Phoenix area, what would you suggest?
I mean, hiking. I like going hiking around here. That's a very cliche answer. You can hike Camelback.
I keep getting told Sedona's the place to go.
So, oh well, if you want to make a 2-hour drive, Sedona's gorgeous, or
It,
or Flagstaff, but I really recommend Sedona. It's got some vortex. I actually, it's funny you say that. My friend who works for Purely Sedona,
okay.
I'm a water whore. Okay, I drink about. Did I lose you there for a sec?
You froze up. There you go.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I drink about, I would say easily like 6 to 8 liters of water a day.
Okay.
So more days, eight of these bottles, and it's all mineral water from a spring in Sedona, and it's pH balance. It is insane to me how many people don't understand how important good water is. Good water consumptions. It's like the pH level helps push the acidity out of your body, and the minerals and everything, and of course the pH. You're taking inflammation out of your body. Inflammation is the leading cause of disease. That's why I take so much CBD too. It shrinks everything. It takes the swelling away. So I travel like a madman. I am working nonstop. I rarely get sick. So I guess that would be my advice to anyone listening right now. I don't know how this turned into a water speech. Drink good water. Like Dasani, fuck off. It's junk. It's horse piss. It's not pH balance. It's fucking tap water. They've monopolized the industry because of how much power they have. Go get good fucking drinking water, folks, and drink a lot of it.
You heard it here first, folks. Well, I appreciate Paul, Mr. Biz, for coming on with me. It has been an honor. I got to give a shout out to my buddy Dustin Mullet, because without him, a buddy of mine and Lloyd that I work with, he listens to you guys religiously. He told me I should reach out. That's how this all started, even remotely close to this happening. So a huge shout out to
What's
that guy.
wild is I believe you tweeted at me and I
Yeah,
followed you, right?
correct.
Yeah, I get so many requests. It's that whether you catch
Oh
me on a
man,
good day and you message me, and then all fate brought us together at the
fate brought us
ASU
together. That's right.
and I'm glad I could get on your podcast. Hopefully your following enjoyed it. Half of them might be like, this guy is a fucking douchebag. Oh well, I tried. Hey, right on the money. Right on the
Sounds
money.
good. Well, you have a great night. Thank you for hopping on. This has been an absolute pleasure.
I wish you nothing but the best and good luck growing your brand, my friend. If you get any negativity, fuck them. Keep doing you, and message me tomorrow so you can grab some of this Pink Whitney. Oh, and I got to plug my Can-I brands. That's the CBD company. Biz20 promo code for 20% off. It's incredible. I'll give you a bottle of the Boost tomorrow.
Sounds good.
That too. All right.
Cool,
I'm just holy shit. It's like you're on fucking Oprah or Ellen, getting all these gifts.
And
all
you're
right.
getting a car, and you're getting a car.
Yeah. Just don't be jumping on my couch like Tom Cruise, Peckerhead. All right.
Sounds
see you, buddy.
good. Yeah. Bye. Thanks for listening, guys. That was, I don't even know if I got the words. That was pretty freaking cool. To sit down with a guy like that who's having as much success as him and the rest of his Spittin Chiclets team are having right now. Like, it's pretty cool to watch what they're doing and who they're getting on, and have him hop on for an episode was surreal, to say the least. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and we'll catch you next week.